Yeah, so welcome back this afternoon, everybody. This morning was very informative, showing us all the new stuff with the new Datashed rollout. And I think this afternoon is going to be good with us getting to practice a little. So I'll just go ahead and let Cliff take it away, and I'll be monitoring the chat over on Whova, and you're free to raise if you'd like, and Cliff can answer questions as we go, or you can wait till the end. I guess I'll, let you decide how you would like to do that. So.
Okay, yeah, we'll at least for this session, we'll go on with we'll save the questions to the end for the most part, I think. So welcome back, everybody, and to the Datashed training. This is session 3, and so this session is going to focus on uploading water quality data. So we'll first talk about how to create a sample point, because you have to create a sample point inside Datashed before you can upload data to it. And then I'll talk a little bit about the kind of how to prepare your data, because I do get questions on that. And then we'll actually walk through the process of uploading some data. And I think I'm going to try and do at least upload 2 different files. The one with the one file actually showing some errors that Datashed should catch. We'll get started, and I will share my screen. We'll see if I can do this and not mess up like I did the one time. So okay, I think we're good here. Oops, you know what? I shared the wrong screen. Hold on. I have 2 versions of Datashed up and running. One is as a user. All right. So let's go back. And so you want to create, let's say you want to upload some data. So what do you have to do? First thing you do, you've got to go to your project. And so we're going to go to the Cliff Test 2 that I created earlier with you. And so the first thing you need to do is create some sample points. And so if you click on this View Sample Points, you'll see where it says No Sample Points Available. And so we're going to add a sample point. And whoops, I actually forgot what I was going to call the sample points. Okay, yeah, so we're going to call, we'll say that the one sample point that we're going to create, we're just going to call this raw. If you want to add an image to it, so we will, you can use your menu to choose the file, or you can just drag and drop. You can put a description. So we'll say this is the oops, I have cap locks on. This is influent to fake Cliff Test 2. You can put any kind of description in here. A lot of times I'll do things like I'll do things like AMD, and then say influent to fake to the system. Might say what components goes into. Type. I'm actually hoping to update this in the future. Right now, it's just sort of like a blank slate. You can put anything you wanted in there, but it's really meant to distinguish what kind of sample this is. I'm probably gonna make this a drop-down menu. Things that I think about in terms of when I put in here is, is it an AMD discharge? Is it passive treatment component? Is it a stream? Is it a well monitoring point? That sort of thing. So in this case, I'm going to say AMD. This is the influent to the treatment system, and so you'll click the inflow box. And this is extremely important that if it is an influent or an outflow, that you click on that box, because that determines whether it shows up in those summary reports that I've shown you. It also goes involved in determining how calculating loading. So it's very important that those boxes are appropriately checked. If it's just a settling pond or something that's just in the middle of the treatment system, you don't need to click anything. But if it is an influent to the system or the effluent of the system, you need to click on those. And if you have more than one influent or more than one effluent of a system, you can check that for each box. Years monitor, this is where I said it's just sort of a blank thing. It doesn't calculate. I mean, you could put something in there, but it changes. The flow order is supposed to be the flow order as it goes through the treatment system. So like the idea would be, your raw, it would be 0 or 1, and then you order it. And the idea is that the Datashed will then use those numbers to order, like let's say the water quality report, so that it shows the water quality in an order. There is a little bit of a bug. I think that sometimes that's not always actually working in those reports, but that's the idea behind there. So I'm going to say that this is the flow order 0. Datashed idea of this project, that's not important for here. You can put this information, although it's not really necessary. This is just sort of a generic sort of form that gets input here. I would recommend putting in a longitude and latitude. We don't actually have the link to that website that I showed before, but certainly you can pull this off of Google or whatever. But this is the only way. If you don't put the longitude and latitude, it won't show up on the map. So it is important to put that in there. The active organizations, that's not particularly important. You can put the stream that it goes into and the quad. Not necessarily all that important information for the sample point information. Aliases becomes important. The only need for this is actually related to, you can put it in there, but this is meant for like if you're, if people call this different things, so for instance, like I called this raw, maybe it's really, maybe other people call it AMD 20, and so, or, maybe someone else, and how this is, those of you who deal with data, maybe someone else calls this, this is Cliff 1. The IDs, this is related to SIS. The way the SIS system worked, or at least the original system that we had in here, is that every SIS sample point, this one in the SIS database, it has a specific ID number, and I can't remember offhand, but it's usually like I think it's a 6-digit number, and so it'll be something like, 701234, and that's the way, and that Datashed will actually use this ID and the data that's imported to actually assign it and import it into this database, to this project and show it up as this treatment system, or as this sample point name. And so that's really important for the SIS thing. That's something that I do. So it's not something, although it is something as a user that but you'd have to work with me to make sure that we're pulling that data, because in order for the data to get from SIS, there's a separate query that we have to work with DEP and set that up with DEP. So that's all that sort of thing. And then when you're all done, you just hit save. Oh, it's not going to do that, is it? Oh. That is going to be really annoying. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to see if that kind of resets on itself. I was having a bug 2 days ago with the same sort of thing on a new project. And that was supposed to have been fixed. So sample point, let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and create the wetland. Let's say the final effluent. We're going to call this WL for wetland. And let's see here, we'll do go effluent or photo. This is and I'll say, this is wetland, triangle F1, let's say S2. For type, we'll say passive system. Is the outflow. We use flow order 1. And we put the latitude longitude in there. And we'll save it. That's not, let's see here. What happens if this is this is frustrating. I was having the same problem the other day, and the programmers went and fixed it. It was working yesterday. I'm not sure what the deal is there. So, but that's how you create the sample points. And I should still, even though they're not showing them there, I should still be able to go through the water quality upload process. I've already shown you how the sample points, how you could see the information on the sample points. And actually what I'll do is I will switch back to, I'll go to the Cliff Test 1. And just to kind of show you, so this is for a different project. If you were going to, if you wanted to edit this sample point, you would just click on the edit button, assuming you had the permission, and come in and save that information. Fix whatever needs to be, and then hit save. And in this case, I do have the permission to delete it. Please don't ever delete a sample point, even if you get the permission to do it. Don't do that. If you want to delete something, please contact me. Just because in case accidents do happen and we don't want to lose any information. And actually, if you ever see where you can delete something, you should probably let me know, make sure that it's not some sort of weird permission rules error that's even giving you the ability to do that. Let me go back, because I do want to use I don't want to upload data to that project. I do want to go back here to the test 2 and see if I can still upload data that way. So the way that you actually upload data is to come over to the data button and hit the upload CSV data. And so it'll bring you to this screen, import water quality data, and it tells you to, to import your water quality data CSV. For more information, use the help guide. So what I want to do next is actually talk a little bit about preparing your data. So this is, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to share my screen on a different, actually, I guess I got to open it first, don't I?
Cliff, this is where you can choose at the top and click New Share.
Yeah, so okay, so I'm going to click New Share, and I had to open the file up first. Can you see the data?
Not yet.
Oh, there it is. That's why it's not. Okay.
Now I see it.
Okay. And it says fake data 1A.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So let's say this is your Excel file, and that this is the way that you've been storing your data. And so there are certain things that are important to be able to upload this data. The first thing is that to a certain extent, it doesn't have to be an exact replicate of this, because there's a mapping step that you go through. What is important is that your parameters go across these columns. The order of these parameters doesn't really matter. It does not matter whether you have flow first or field pH first, or that you even have field pH. So you want to have the data that you want to upload. What is important is that the first column is your sample point. And I would actually recommend calling it sample point. Theoretically, you should be able to call this anything you want. But if you call it sample point, then it just makes Datashed's life a lot easier, and it will work. I've had problems where I called this something else and it didn't recognize it, and it actually threw data. It messed the Datashed, and we need to work on that, maybe improving that. But it really helps if you just call this sample point. The rest of these fields, it almost doesn't matter, but the more that you make it like Datashed's fields, the easier it will be for Datashed to recognize it, and easier it will be for you because you won't have to actually adjust it. Datashed will automatically identify it, and you'll understand that more in a minute. You have your sample point here on the far left. You have each individual sample, sample point. You need to have a sample date. That's very important. So it's important to have a sample date, obviously, for, I guess, obvious reasons. And then you have your parameters going across. Like I said, the order of these don't really matter. You can have them in any order that you want, because you're going to map all of this out. And so, but what is important is that you have the sample point, a date, and that the parameters go across, and then each row is an individual sample of a sample date. So this is the wetland on August 2nd, 2019. And, and then here are the data for that sample. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, the next step is you have to have this, in order for Datashed to import it, you have to have it in a CSV format, which is really easy to do. You just can come up to File and hit Save As, and then come over here, and you'll see where it has this sort of file type, and you click on this drop-down menu. And there are a couple different versions of the CSV. What I recommend is actually coming down to this one. I probably should experiment with some of these other CSV versions. This is just the way I've always done it. And so I really should experiment with that. And if anybody runs into any problems, let me know. But this is CSV, comma, delimited file. And so then you hit save. So you can get out of that, and you are ready for your next step. Oops, I probably logged accidentally. Make sure I'm using the right. Where did I lose my? Oh, there it is. Too many things open. Okay. So you're ready now to actually upload the file. And so you can do you can either, again, choose the file and go through your menus and find it. Or particularly if you have like two screens, it's easy to just drag and drop. A lot of times now in your folder on your computer, you actually have two files now. You'll have one that is, matter of fact, maybe I should actually show that. So you come over here, you'll see under type, you'll see that I have two that are called fake data 1A, but one is a regular Microsoft worksheet, and the other is the CSV file, comma, separated values file. And that's the one that you want to make sure that you choose. So let me go back to screen here. And so we're going to take the CSV file, and you'll see it's up, it's here, and you're just going to hit submit CSV. Oh, now there is another bug that occurs, and I do not understand. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm going to go back to this file here. And if I open this up, and that's probably the best way to, is if I open this up as I believe it's a rich text format. No. Notepad, that's what I use. For some reason, sometimes with these files, hopefully you can see that. I'm not sure. Actually, here,
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah, okay. So you'll see that there's all these weird like blank rows, and I still don't understand why it does this. This was never a problem in, or maybe the old version of Datashed somehow recognized this during the import and just ignored it. And that might be something I have to work with the programmers on. But it does occur. It's super annoying. So what I've had to do, when that happens, is that I've had to come in here and what I'll do is I'll actually come in here and I'll just delete a bunch of these rows. And I'll also delete some of these columns. And it really, this shouldn't, I'm not, like I said, it's a weird bug, and it's something that I just noticed the other day. I wasn't having problems before. And then I'll save it again. Okay. And so we'll go back to screen. Okay. Now, oops, make sure I use the right one. Okay, so this is what you should see. And so if you run into that problem where it says it's been uploaded, but the mapping does not come up, that is most likely the problem that has occurred. And you just simply go back. It's annoying, I agree. And maybe we'll be able to figure out a better way of solving that issue. But you just go back and you just delete a few of the blank rows and a few of the blank columns, and then it seems to work. Now, if you remember, if you're an old Datashed user, you may remember a whole other different complex mapping system of having to highlight rows and all that sort of stuff. None of that is actually necessary now. And in Datashed, we're trying to build into it as much as possible for it to think through itself and to figure things out for itself. And so you'll see that up above that it had the sample, that it's already kind of figured out that this is the sample point. So this is the sample point ID. And it has automatically started to try and figure out what the sample points are. And if they match, if your sample points in your spreadsheet, and that was one thing actually I forgot to mention, that the sample points that you put in your spreadsheet should match the sample points that you've named in Datashed. And so if it has matched it up, over here you'll see them in green, but here it's telling me that it needs to be selected. And also in this pink box up here, you'll see that there's like a warning message, and it says select sample points. A sample point must be assigned to each row of data, and so it did not do that. And a lot of times, and in this case, it's just because it's not always this sensitive, but they don't match only because this is all capitals and this is not. So I can go through here and then just add it. So you want to make your spreadsheet, the sample points that are in your spreadsheet, match as ideally exactly as possible. However, if you don't, you can't come here and select it. In the old version of Datashed, you would not have that opportunity. You would actually have to exit back out, fix your spreadsheet, and then come back in and upload it. So this is a little bit of a time saver, and that you can actually have the option of fixing things. That's actually true for a number of these things that you'll see. You also see there's also a legal value here related to the date. And this is a little bit of an annoying feature, and that it requires the data set up so that you have the month and the year and stuff. But normally, if you come in here and you can fix this. And again, I would recommend as much as possible, learning your rules, and having your data set up to go in the first place. And actually, I think it'll actually allow you. I think it's actually the year that's really the holdup. I don't think it'll actually make you fix the month and date to be in that MMDD format. You'll see that the sample date has already, that Datashed had already selected sample date. And just to kind of go through here, you'll see that this top row up here, these are the names that were on the spreadsheet that I had uploaded. This middle row is an indication for you to select whether it's a lab parameter or a field parameter. And then this bottom row is the Datashed field name. And so you want to make sure that the name, the Datashed that you're going to import it in is the correct field. And Datashed does try to guess and figure this out. And it's kind of strange, like the way some of them it figures out very easily, and you're kind of almost surprised it figures it out. And other times you're like, why didn't it figure that out? But it is pretty good. And there are some things I think that we can adjust and put in like little hints in there in the back end to maybe make it a little bit better. So for example, here in mine, I just had it taken. Well, that taken's not a very good description. And but for me, that was sampler. And so this is, and for me, I think of this as being a field thing. And so we'll go down through, and you go down through this list of the parameters. So these are the field names in Datashed. In the old version, we were able to separate some of the more metadata type fields from the water quality fields. And I'm hoping that we can kind of redo that again, because it makes it a little bit easier to find certain things. But it is basically in alphabetical order. So in Datashed, the sampler, it's sampler person. So flow, so the next one was flow method. Again, I think of this as a field parameter. It's something you do in the field. Now, Datashed did guess this, not to be flow method, but actual flow. And so we don't want to change, we want to make sure we change that because it's not correct. And in Datashed, it's not flow method, it's method of flow. And then the next parameter is in my spreadsheet was flow. Again, I see that as being, it's measured in the field, and Datashed had already guessed that. So we have that already, and we don't have to change that. So next is field pH, and Datashed has been able to guess that and said that, okay, they marked that as field and pH, so they figured that one out. And the next is lab pH, and Datashed guessed that as well, lab pH. Whoops. You can use this space bar, or you can actually use your arrows. And if you have a lot of data, if you have a lot of data, it'll actually push this bar down, the scrolling bar, so you can't really see it. And so then using your arrows makes that a lot easier to adjust. But with such little data, you can do either way easily. So the next one I have is conductivity. In this instance, this was not a field measurement. This was the measurement that the lab measured. And Datashed was not able to determine that. And partly that's because in Datashed, we actually have that as a specific conductance. But that is a lab measurement. Temperature, it has, Datashed has correctly guessed its field temperature, but did not identify here as being field, which I think is a little odd that it doesn't do that. Then the next is field alkalinity, so that's field, and Datashed did say that was alkalinity. And the next one I know is the lab alkalinity, and so it did guess that. Then we have acidity, so that's a lab measurement. Datashed guessed that. Then there's iron, and it is lab measurement. And this is total iron, which Datashed did guess. There is a separate iron if it was dissolved. So there is iron, there's dissolved, there's iron. And the way Datashed has this is organized is actually the parameter first, or the metal first. So it's iron and then parentheses dissolved, or iron parentheses total. And so, whoops. So that's iron total. Manganese, it guessed it correctly. Aluminum, it does not. I'm not sure why it never does guess aluminum, right? And so that's lab. And so we'll do aluminum total. Sulfate, it's lab, sulfate, I guess. And so look how weird it is. Like, it actually knows that SO4 is sulfate. I think this is something in the some of the background information that we had put in the original version of Datashed and that carried over well, or that the programming people carried over well. And some of these maybe we have to go into adjust. And then the last parameter here that I had on my sheet was total suspended solids, which again, it guessed correctly. So once you've gone through that, you've mapped everything out, and you come over here to your CSV, submit CSV, and you hit the button. And so you'll see up here, your CSV data has been successfully saved successfully. Now I have a feeling based on the issues that I was having over here that I'm not actually gonna be able to pull up the data. We'll check it just in case. Oh, no, it did. So it was able to upload the data, and it happens that fast. I'm wondering now if I can actually see. No. So that must be a weird thing. Like, they actually did run, I believe they actually ran a new update last night. And so I bet that reset whatever that issue was. I'll have to have them fix that again. So now what I want to do is I actually want to upload another file because I want to show you some more changes. There are some things that Datashed can kind of pick up on, but I'll do this a little bit faster this time. And so I already have a one that's already prepared as a CSV file. And so you hit submit button. And so it has identified some issues. And so having this system set like it is really nice because the programmer, Ed, when he was doing this, he tried to incorporate ways so that even though it would pick up on an error and it would identify errors to try and help, kind of improve data quality for being uploaded, he also tried to create it so you could come in and edit it right here on the screen. Now, the good thing about that is that in former versions of Datashed, you could get all the way through the process. Datashed wouldn't even be able to identify these issues until you actually hit the submit button. And then it would find the errors, and then it would say, and then you're just stuck because you then have to actually go back to your file, your original, excuse me, you'd have to go back to your original CSV file, edit it, and then go through that entire process. And the process could be very lengthy, especially then. There was much more steps involved. And so it's a pretty cool feature that he has built in. So some things I put in some fake data and try to make some things so it would automatically show up so you could see some of the things. There's actually more variety of things that it looks for, but this will give you an example. And so again, it highlights things in pink that are definite problems, and it'll highlight things in yellow that that it suspects could be an issue. However, it will allow you, if it's yellow, it will allow you to move forward. It's just, it likes to bring that attention to it because it's questioning whether or not it's a value. And so what we try to do is we try to, for those things that are like yellow, we try to put in things that we thought were maybe extreme, so that it would pick up on it. That might be an area, but it's potentially possible. But like I said, what it does is give you the ability to try and fix these things now. So for instance, okay, we don't have the sample point, so we can come in here and fix that. You'll see where I had accidentally called it wetland instead of WL, but I can come over here and change that. You'll see on the sample date, while I have is that I have a typo here. And so I had an extra 0. Obviously, there's not 101 days in June. And so I can come in here and fix that. Sample point here, sample date, sample person, the flow. No, this is the flow method. Oh, that's right, method of flow. Even myself, I sometimes mix up on that. Flow field. So here in pH, it picked up on the fact that I have a 68 pH. So I believe the range we put on there is that basically it's 0 to 14 for pH. And so if it exceeds that, it'll throw in that message. And I'm going to say that probably in reality, let's say that was a 6.8 pH. And so we have field pH, we have lab pH, conductivity. We'll have to go back through here. That's a lab value. Field temperature. Field alkalinity. I'm going to skip over this number because you'll see, like right now, it doesn't say anything, but it will later. This one in yellow. So in here we have alkalinity, and this is the lab, and you'll notice it's highlighted there as negative. And it says alkalinity requires values to be over 0. So you shouldn't have a negative alkalinity. So we come back here and like, oh, that was a mistake. That was just a typo, maybe, or maybe it was meant to be 0. Whatever it was, you can come in here and fix it. Acidity, that was lab, iron, total. manganese lab total, aluminum total, sulfate, and suspended solids. Okay. Now you'll see as we've gone through and over time as you move around, it cleared out all those errors in the pink over here, and it'll actually allow you to now go forward and submit. Now, if I click on the submit button, it'll give me this notice. The following fields were flagged. Please confirm you'd like to submit your data anyways. Notice 2000, which is the value I have in there for alkalinity. Data type alkalinity contains an abnormal value, and we have it set for 1000. That's just to kind of like bring your attention to it. These things in yellow were meant to bring your attention to it because maybe it's out of, let's say, typical range, but it doesn't mean that it's not impossible. You're not likely to find a sample with 2000 alkalinity, but it's at least theoretically possible. And so now you can, you could cancel it, so you could cancel and go, oh no, I meant actually 200, or maybe it's a really awesome treatment system, and you can hit submit. Again, it's going to come up with that, but you can hit the go ahead and submit it, and then it will tell you that your data has been submitted. And so that is basically the process of uploading data. Now there is a way to edit data, at least if you have certain permissions. And let me see if I can, do I still have that pulled up? No, I don't think I shared the right one. Let's see. Okay. So just to kind of show you this, I'm gonna go to actually I'll go to Cliff test 2. And if I go to the water quality and go to the water quality report, at least I know as a Datashed administrator, I can come in here and edit data. So anything that is highlighted in blue is something that I can pull up and edit. So let's just say, for instance, that that this I don't know, let's say the flow is wrong, and I can just click on that value and I'll pull it up, and I come here to the data value, and let's say that was really 200, and so I can save that, and then I can go back, and that needs to actually be fixed so that I can actually go back to the original value, and then and so you can see that I updated it to 200. All right, so I think I've covered the how to create sample points and how to edit or upload data and edit. And so I think with that, I will I'll open that up to we can open up to questions. Let me go back to all right. Anne, are you there?
I'm here. Yep.
Okay. So I was wondering if you could check to see what questions there are,
Okay. We're gonna start with one that I think that was left over from last session, and I believe it's from Eric Scrivseth.
Okay.
Okay. Can you change the name of the system after you create it? One of them, apparently one of his is named something that he feels is pretty lame, he says.
You can. I would prefer that if you're going to change something drastically like that, that you at least contact me about it. But one thing that I have done, you can certainly come in here. So you would do something like you could come into, let's say, the project settings and edit the project. And it's funny. I have come across a number of systems, that were either misnamed or had some sort of typo, or maybe they're known by multiple names. So one thing I have done with some projects is I've come into the project name, and let's say this is Cliff Test 2, and I've even put right into the name of it things like also known as, as lame system, and saved it that way. But you can certainly change it. And the only reason why I say to let me know is because sometimes these systems do get named by certain people, and so and that's what they're known as. And so, like, by changing the name in Datashed, it may prevent people from being able to find it. The one other option would be is if you do change it, is maybe potentially put it in the description as well. It depends on what you're changing too. But it definitely can be changed. It's not going to mess up anything. As a matter of fact, if you notice up here, it actually automatically even changed the web address. Like, it has already gone back and changed it. So now it's to clifftest2-ak-lame system.
Okay. Cool. This is also from Eric Scrivseth. If you have 2 influence, can you have 2 flow? And then I'm not sure we might need to ask him to take his mic off and explain this, because I'm not exactly sure what this part means. But if you have 2 influence, can you have 2 flow, order 0 sample points? So I think he means if you have a treatment system that has 2 inflows, can you have 2 flows?
Okay, yeah, I think I know what he means. So yeah, I think you can select them being as 2 inflows or as 2 flow order zeros. I think it will allow you to do that. I'm not sure which way it'll actually show that. And again, with this system, it's like there are some things like that's the kind of thing that we still need to kind of work out some bugs with. And in the old system, it would allow you to do that. And actually, in the old system, which I preferred, when you were in the sample points, if you were editing this, whoops, that's right. When you were editing sample points, it would actually allow you to drop and drag the sample points in the order that you wanted them to. And I would really like to bring that back if they can figure out how to do that. I think Peter had done some customized programming to allow that. Even within Drupal, he somehow made it so that it was able to kind of drop and drag, and I really like that. I like that so much better than using that. The order one is actually part of the original, version 1.0, and then in 2.0 he found a way to be able to kind of drop and drag them into the right order, which is just much easier than trying to figure out which one was 1, which was 2, that sort of thing.
Okay. And Eric, I see Eric did take off his mute. Did we answer your question on that, Eric?
Yes. If you
Okay.
can hear me, yes.
We can. Awesome. Cool. All right. We'll go ahead on to the next one. This is from Tim Kanai. When I go into projects of which I am a member and click on the sample points tab, I only see the view sample points option and don't get a tab to add sample points. How does he fix that?
Okay, so So he's saying when he's in a project, I want to go to a different project other than that one. So when he's into if I'm understanding right, he goes to these view sample points, and this is what he can see. Did he say he can't add a sample point? Is that correct? Or he can't edit?
Tim, if you have the ability, if you've got a mic, you want to go ahead and unmute, and we'll let you describe that further to Cliff. He might not have a mic. I'm not.
Okay. Regardless, actually, it's probably a permissions issue, and what role he is assigned. If you want to add a new sample point, this is the place where you would come under sample points, click add sample point. If you do not see the ability to add sample point, it's probably because you don't have the permission to do so. Same thing with editing. So if you do not see a button over here to where it says edit, it's because you don't have that permission. And so that's something that we just need to adjust, because even though you're a member of an organization or of a project, there are different permission levels. I think I touched on that during the one session. And actually I can kind of, let me go back to my, okay, yeah, so this is my sort of administrative feature here, and let me go to a project.
So it sounds like Tim will have to contact you to get those permissions if he does not have what he needs.
That's correct. Yeah, because like under the permissions, there's a place called manage members. Like if you have the certain permission levels, you can come in here and adjust these. And so there are things like, so you'll see how all these different people have different roles. They're called roles, but the permissions are related to the roles. And so a lot of people, particularly when they first become a member and they get approved to become a member, they will come in just as what's called a project contributor. And so that will allow you to do certain things, like let's say allow you to upload water quality data, but it might not allow you to edit like a sample point information. And some of that is, I think I mentioned earlier today, some of these permissions, we had certain permission roles set up under the, say 2.0 version, and now under the new version of Drupal, those permission levels are different. And so we're still kind of trying to work those out and what makes sense. And the best way that's going to get figured out is as people use it. So, but I can come in here and say, okay, you need to be maybe you need to be upgraded to a project manager that will allow you to do that, or maybe we need to change what a project contributor can do. So yeah, definitely email me and we will work that out.
Okay, thank you. So Tim, if you're still listening, you can email Cliff directly. Let's see, this question is from Bobby Hughes, and I think we're actually going to wait to answer Bobby's questions because he is not going to be here. He had to leave, but he'll be back for the next session. So we're going to keep that one.
Okay.
And it actually looks like, other than that original question from Jeremy Weber, who hasn't joined back in. But let's go ahead and answer it for everyone else's information.
Okay.
He says, Cliff, do you envision adding the capability of exporting the data from all sample points with all tests and results from all projects in one sheet?
Ooh.
That's a lot.
I'm not going to say never. That is certainly not in our current sort of list, our to-do list that could become a potential thing that we do in the future. That would be, I have a feeling that might be a little bit on the difficult side, and potentially problematic as well, because so many people use similar sort of names, for sample points. Like it's very common for people to, let's say, name a vertical flow pond VFP, and so like within Datashed, there are a lot of vertical flow ponds, but they are each associated with their own project. I think there is an ID, a specific ID for that project within Datashed, so it'd still be individual, but what you would end up with though is probably a spreadsheet, that's, oh my goodness. And the other problem is the amount of data that would be potentially in there. I mean, you're talking about, there's over 400 different projects within Datashed, and each of them could easily have 10 or more sample points, and so, so now you're like looking at like 4,000 sample points, so that's going to vary, and then, how many, rows of data, I mean, some of these, in some of these projects, people put in a lot of data, like Jennings, they have, they usually have like an intern person who's going out, sometimes at least once a week, sometimes even multiple times a week, so they have a lot of data in their system. So that could be a potential, exporting all that data could be difficult, but most people aren't interested in that. He's actually the first person, he's talked to me before about that, and he's the only person I think that's ever asked me, in the almost 20 years of existence, if we could do that. So that's certainly not going to be a priority for us, especially with so many other things that we want to do.
Hey, Cliff, can I follow up to that question?
Yes.
So is it possible to just export all the data for one system?
Yes. Oh, that already exists. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, if you were, let me go back here to the water quality. If you go to the water quality tab, there is a little line here that says export raw data to CSV. And so if you click on that button, it will generate a spreadsheet, Excel, like an Excel file or CSV file that you can, and I'll just go ahead and do that. And so it'll say, like save file. We need to do something about the naming system for that. The old version of Datashed actually would give it a name that was kind of related to the system, where this just says raw report and it's kind of generic. So that's something I would like to fix. And so if I come up to here and open that, I'm probably gonna have to share that. It probably doesn't automatically come up. Let me see. Can you see that now?
Yes.
Okay, so this is kind of like what the report will then look like. And then, yeah, the individual user can, adjust this. They can, do their own statistics or, however they want. And that's for the whole project. You can also, export a similar report that is just specific to that sample point. So if you go to on that sample point right here, sample point report, it'll just export this data for this sample point.
Cool. Thanks.
Sure.
Well, we are about 1 minute from the end of the session here. That wraps up all the questions except for Bobby Hughes, which we'll save. So if you have any closing remarks for this session, or if you want to take one more question, I'll let you decide.
Yeah, I'm fine with taking another question if someone has another question.
Okay, raise your hand or type something in real quick if you've got a question as we finish up here. Okay, well, I'm not seeing any hands raising. So I believe we'll go ahead and wrap up, and then we start back here again at 2 p.m.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
We'll see how that goes, and I believe Mike and maybe I believe that we were giving them a little kind of setup so that they could kind of log in, right, as a regular Zoom meeting. Am I remembering that
Yes.
correctly?
Yeah,
Okay.
it'll be a regular Zoom meeting, so they'll be able to have their microphone and camera on automatically. And there's a potential that we could share their screen too, so.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, we'll give that a try and see how things go. And yeah, at the very least, we can ask additional questions or whatever.
Now, Cliff, do you need to be emailing any files out or anything? Because I have a list of emails.
I did not, yeah, I wasn't really sure how to go about doing this or how it would really work, because I know it's quite possible that some people are viewing this on their phone, and some people are using a laptop or even a desktop and only have one screen. So I'm not exactly sure how well this would go for them to be able to try things out. I usually invite people to have their own files, because this isn't like they're not going to be creating fake projects, or although I guess I could give them fake data that could, since it's just a fake project, it wouldn't matter. But usually the way I've approached it is that they would use their own data on their own projects. It's the way, at least when I've done the live versions.
Okay, I was just checking.
That's a good thought, though. I could provide a fake set of data and let people upload it to the fake site. Having a bunch of duplicate data would be no problem. I'm just going to delete it anyways.
Okay.
All right.
This is Eric. This is Eric Griffith. I've got one problem to solve. If the reason the Stump is a treatment system that, if you look at the historical data, it acts like it's manufacturing AMD. And the reason why is they left one of the influence out. And so I would need to add a sample point, but I don't currently have control of that one because that's one of the ones we took over.
Okay. Yeah, I will.
So
I will.
I mean, that's a.
Yeah, we can work on that. We could even, that's something, if no one has really any questions, I can even kind of show that on how that works in the next session, or I can just work with you individually outside to get you set up to be able to do that. Because that, a lot of that is going to be setting up the right permissions for you to be able to do that.
Yeah, you can stay on. So for the other ones that are here, if you guys want to go ahead and take your break, just make sure that you come back at, what was it, Ann, 2 o'clock?
2 o'clock, I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
Cliff.
cool. So we'll see everybody in about half an hour.
Eric, or did you want to stay on here with Eric or no?
Oh, well, I was saying that that this could be a potential issue that we could talk about in the next session, or
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. Okay.
yeah, or I can talk with Eric on this separately, because it sounds like it's more, what he's talking about really is a permission issue, so that he can actually go in and change these things.
Okay. Sounds good. Then we'll end this one and we'll start up the other one.
All right. Cool. See you all in a little bit.
Be over there.
Bye-bye.